Well, the West will be without our fish. But about that right after we list the most interesting events that happened in our country during the week. So, installation of the 4th generation Brest OD-300 reactor unit has begun in Seversk. This is the world's first new generation fast reactor with a lead coolant. A steel reactor baseplate with a total weight of 165 tons was installed. The builders loaded the first part of the Brest OD-300 reactor unit vessel and the lower tier of the containment structure into the reactor shaft. A solemn ceremony of laying down of the Project 12700 mine defense ship, Schiffer Alexandrit, took place at the Srednyanevsky shipyard in St. Petersburg. The trawler was named after hero of the Soviet Union Semyon Agafonov. The trawlers are highly maneuverable, and the use of the technology of creating the ship's hulls from monolithic fiberglass significantly reduces their magnetic field. N+ Energy and Metallurgical Holding completed work on substation equipment at the Ust-Ilimskaya HPP. The total investment amounted to just under 1.5 billion rubles. Completion of the project will make it possible to supply additional capacity to the Ust-Ilimskaya HPP to connect new industrial consumers in eastern Siberia, as well as provide power supply for the development of the eastern polygon. RZD. Elim Group started production of office paper. The paper will be produced by the company's Vikorozhny branch. As part of the implementation of the investment project, the volume of investments exceeded 9 billion rubles. One of the most modern paper machines in Russia with a capacity of more than 200,000 tons per year was installed at the mill. Pulp bleaching for white paper production at Elim does not depend on imported supplies. RSU and DST Ural tractor plant have joined forces to develop a remote control loader. The miniature dimensions of the loader make it easy to clean hard-to-reach areas of yard areas. However, the machine is capable of working with different types of attachments designed not only to solve municipal needs, garbage and snow collection, but also to neutralize anti-personnel mines. Now such loaders, equipped with anti-personnel mine trawls, have cleared more than 11 hectares of DNR territory. The first unit of the Ust-Ilimskaya TPP in Kuban delivered full capacity to the unified energy system of Russia. The total capacity of the Ust-Ilimskaya TPP will be 560 megawatts. The station will provide electricity to the housing and communal sector and industrial enterprises of Kuban. The generating equipment of the plant will include the first domestic high-capacity gas turbine GTD-110M. The new building of the Yelimov Ural Optics mechanical plant houses machining and blanking production. Modern automated equipment will allow high-precision machining of the entire set of parts included in the products manufactured at the enterprise. In Uglich, Yaroslavl region, construction of a biofactory for the production of bacterial starters and concentrators for the food-dairy industry has begun. The company's products will be used in the production of sour milk products and cheese, meat products, bread and wine. The products should replace imported sourdough starter, the share of which in the Russian market today is about 90%. The new Yak-152 training aircraft for initial training of pilots of the Russian Air and Space Forces has successfully completed state tests. During these tests, the main flight performance characteristics of the aircraft were confirmed. Aircraft sorties were conducted from the Air Regiment's home airfield in the Murmansk region. Saratov-based CZRMK is constructing a 5,000-ton isometric large-capacity tank in the Chelyabinsk region for the storage of liquefied natural gas. The company was the first in Russia to start production of isometric tanks of such volume from domestic materials from design to installation. Well, now let's get to the fact that the West will be without our fish. Since Soviet times, the fish industry in our country has been more export-oriented, which provided serious foreign exchange earnings. For example, in 2002, fish and seafood accounted for 14% of Russia's total food exports, third place after cereals 32% and mass products 22%. But it looks like the fishing and fish processing industries in Russia are about to undergo a major reset. Countries plan to revise all existing treaties with unfriendly countries on the use of domestic marine bioresources, the entire import and export policy in this area, as well as a U-turn to the domestic market. The cries and curses of the Japanese about the ban imposed by Russia on fishing by Japan in the area of the Southern Kurils have not yet subsided. How you can get ready for some Harry Potter-esque profanity. The other day, at the first meeting of the Russian government this year, it was decided to approve a draft federal law on the denomination of the agreement between the government of the Union of Soviet countries, Socialist Republics and the government of the United Kingdom, Great Britain and Northern Ireland on fisheries, proposed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Agriculture and approved by the Federation Council of Russia. The essence of the decision: from now on Russia prohibits British vessels from fishing in the Barents Sea. At one time, namely in 1956, the Soviet Union in a broad gesture allowed the British to exploit its fisheries resources. And the English didn't pay us a penny for fishing. This practice has smoothly migrated to the Russian Federation, the successor of the Soviet Union. But even then we did not charge the UK for fishing in the Barents Sea, based on the spirit of the signed Treaty on Most Favored Nation treatment in bilateral trade. However, on March 15, 2002, Britain unilaterally terminated this regime and joined the collective anti-Russian sanctions, while imposing its own. According to corporate literature, legend, at one point someone looked at the statistics, according to which at least 33% of white fish consumers in Britain are of Russian origin, remembered the many nasty things the English do and the free fishing under our noses, raised his hands to the sky and proclaimed, "Da Kolai." Konstantin Kosachev, Vice Speaker of the Federation Council, said that the planned ban is a long overdue, legal and absolutely adequate response of Moscow to London's unfriendly actions. According to experts, this ban will deprive London, which is actively nasty to us, of multi-billion-dollar revenues, and Russia will not be affected at all. From the word, no. Recall that Russian exports of fishery products have been critically dependent on four markets for many years. 95% of exports went to China, the European Union, the United States and Japan. And, for example, for the US, Russia was one of the main suppliers of crab, salmon, mentai and cod. This factor was perfectly known to the author of global anti-Russian sanctions, which have no analogues in history and therefore, having failed to harm us on other sanctions directions. Last December, the same United States banned imports of fish and seafood of Russian origin, even those shipped through thirds of the country. But as is customary for a crab, the fish's paramoga was immediately transformed into visrada. Crab prices have skyrocketed in the US and there's a cod shortage. Moreover, instead of tearing itself to shreds, the Russian fishing industry has made a leap forward. In particular, at a recent meeting with President Vladimir Putin, Minister of Agriculture Dmitry Petrushev reported on record catches by domestic fishermen of more than 5 million tons, which is the best figure in the last 30 years. At the same time, we have reached a level of self-sufficiency in fish products of 150%, i.e. we may not export fish and seafood at all, except for the most exotic species. To keep the numbers straight, last July the Russian Cabinet of Ministers banned the import of finished fish and seafood products from unfriendly countries, primarily the European Union, Norway and the United States. And their niches must now be filled by domestic producers, whose capacity will slightly allow to meet the needs of the domestic market. A large-scale program to develop the fishing industry in Russia is in the works. New fish processing plants are being built one by one, new fishing vessels are being laid down, 60 are in the pipeline, and new measures to stimulate the domestic market are being developed. For example, as instructed by the President, the Ministry of Finance will soon work with the Ministry of Agriculture to expand state support for the transportation of fish products from the Far East to the central regions of Russia in order to reduce prices and expand the range of products. In terms of exports, the reorganization of routes to new countries is actively underway. A year ago we supplied fish to 60 countries, and this year to 80. And, of course, spatial fisheries activities continue. For example, consultations have been initiated to revise the unfavorable for Russia agreement on fishing in the Bering Sea, signed in 1990 by then Soviet Foreign Minister Eduard Shevardnadze and U.S. Secretary of State James Baker, according to which 80% of the total catch went to the Americans and we were left with only 20%. In other words, it is time to stop the fairy tale of the goldfish and remember the reality of Russia, a country of 14 seas, and, of course, the fact that Russia, a country of 14 seas, which has more than 2 million rivers and almost the same number of lakes, which means that the fish issue should not and cannot stand in principle. As for the sanctioners, who have essentially deprived themselves of Russian fish with their own hands, let them trade in broken troughs, which they now have more than enough.